Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. In our second segment today, we'll talk with Robert Sterling, an editor at the Marin Independent Journal.
First, Peter, we have Supervisor Judy Arnold returning to the show, this year as serving as the president of the Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Arnold represents Novato and Northern Marin, and she's serving her second term. She has a wealth of experience in government. She was on the staff to Supervisor Gary Giacomini, worked with John Burton, and has been a member of the Novato City Council.
Mm-hmm.
She's a mother of 3. I'm not going to say it, a grandmother of 5.
You can say that.
All right, I'll say a grandmother of 5. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, Judy, one of the first tasks that you had in January was to deal with Marin County's dispute with Deloitte, the consulting firm, over the failed computer system. Taxpayers lost $30 million on the system and spent $5 million more in legal fees that produced a settlement of only $3.9 million. That's a loss. And that settlement includes a gag order that we understand sharply limits what you can say. But we got to ask about this. What can you say?
What I could say about this is we went on the advice of our counsel. And I think that we did have a good case. Let me just back up and say that the county needed a system. We were doing our work by hand. A department head director would take it down, hand a sign off to another department head. So we looked, and it looked like SAP was going to be a good fit for us. As it turned out, it was not, but how it really turned out was that we were, Deloitte, which were our counselors, did not give us, or our consultants, did not give us the one-on-one instruction that they had said they would. So there were problems. Now this came in 2004. We now have 3 supervisors on the board, including myself, that were not part of that decision and had to deal with that. Well, me starting in 2007 and the other 2 just very recently. And I think that what the county has done that I think is good, they've acknowledged that this was a mistake, and that not only that, but that it wasn't transparent, that we should have not placed the system in an elected department head's office, but we should have done it with IT. Here's the good thing about it. We are now looking for another system, what they call a Tier 2, which is really geared toward government, not toward massive businesses. SAP is for like MGM. It's huge. We are looking for a Tier 2, and we have 2 supervisors that are on the committee, Supervisor Kate Sears and myself. We have informed all of the employees. We have hired a consultant, Plant Marin, to come in and to look at what we need, look at where we went wrong before, help us. They don't represent any software company. They're just going to help us pick what we need. So, you know, it's a shame. None of us are happy. None of us liked it. But it's what we're doing, and now it's time to just go forward.
I was curious about the gag order or the secrecy agreement that was entered into as part of the settlement. Was that something that the county asked for, or the Deloitte asked for? And given the fact that it's now in place, is the teaching moment lost for those of us who are going to look at another project as it's moving down the pike?
I don't think you're going to get a teaching moment from the county, because it is part of the settlement, and therefore to go against that could bring great hurt to the county, which I regret.
There's another controversy about taxpayer money, and that is the Community Service Fund. Now, currently, you and your 4 colleagues each are assigned $65,000 a year to give out to nonprofits and community groups. The civil grand jury and others want to end this program, and let me take the other side, okay? We've seen no charges that these grants were wasted or misused, And I believe each supervisor knows what the needs are in her or his district. So what's the problem, and what do you think is the solution?
Well, the solution would be for everybody to be happy with getting what the grants that they want, and to trust that the supervisors are on the ground and know their districts well, and that there's transparency. I had brought to the board 4 years ago asking that they be put on the agenda once a month. So every month on the agenda on consent, you see District 5 ask for $10,000 to Novato schools, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there is a sentiment that's prevalent in Marin County these days that is we don't trust government. We don't want you to use our taxpayer money. We want to tell you what we want to support. So if you want to pay for a police dog to help the Novato Police Department, well, no, we don't want you to say that. We want to do that ourselves. We'll say how we want it spent. So unfortunately, I come from a background where earmarks were the mark of a really good legislator. You bring home a swimming pool or a gym for your district, people are really happy. So I think what we're going to do, I finally just said, because nothing seems to please, and because please these constituents that are calling and coming to us, let's come up with a way to do it where the supervisors do not allocate, but where we put in the budget what we think is good for our community, and then it's voted on publicly at budget time.
Another issue that seems to be floating to the top now is there are calls for a citizen review panel for the county sheriff department. It brings up some questions about law enforcement issues and discrimination generally in Marin County, and how it's affecting law enforcement, housing, allocation of resources. What's your view on that, and where are we going?
Well, as far as the police review board goes, the sheriff has been before us and has said that police review boards are totally appropriate for cities, municipalities. There's no police review board for the county. I spoke with Supervisor Kate Sears recently because the problem seems to be centered in Marin City, which she represents, and she said she does not think that's the way to bring about a community rapport, that she wants to do community policing in the sense that she calls meetings with the deputies down there and the community, and they get together, they get to know each other, and they do it community-wide. It has not come before us. So, I can't speak to the police review board in regard to what our board is going to do about it, but I can speak to discrimination in the county. Currently, our county is under a consent decree with HUD, which is Housing and Community Development. We did an analysis of impediments to fair housing at their request. And as a result of that analysis, we saw that there's discrimination in Marin County. And so it took us a year and a half. We came up with an implementation plan on how to deal with discrimination in Marin. We expanded our Community Development Block Grant Committee from one city council member from each of the 11 cities and a supervisor, which is myself, to include 7 members of the protected class, which is an odd designation, but it connotes items in Title VI, race, gender, single mothers, etc., and sexual orientation. So we have 7 new members on this Community Development Block Grant Fund committee, which doles out the funds, and it's totally changed the way this committee operates. We're seeing into the problems that members of the protected class face and the obstacles. And now we're going to the cities and we're going to say, now we want to see what you're doing to promote fair housing, and we want to work together with you, and we're developing a story bank where members of the community can talk about discrimination that they have faced, so that we can show that. We're going to put it on the county website, and we can take it to community meetings so people can see that it's here in liberal Marin, and it's never really over. I marched in the 60s. I worked for a black-owned and operated bus company in Marin City that I saw go under because government didn't want them there. So I feel this very, very deeply, and it's we're going to do something about it.
Why don't you say the name of the committee again in case someone wants to get in touch with you all?
The Community Development Block Grant Committee, and they can call my office.
Thanks.
Great. Judy, what are some of your priorities, 2 or 3 items that you plan to be working on in the coming year?
In the coming year, first of all, I'm chair of SMART, and I want to bring the train to town, and it looks like it's on schedule. I'm very happy with the new general manager and with our board. And we are going to be having one train delivered the end of 2013 to test on the tracks before then everything starts running in 2015. Another goal of mine for my district in particular is we have a closed Novato theater on Old Town on Grant Avenue. We have a very engaged volunteer group that raised $750,000 to take the theater, buy the property from the city, have some left over, and now we're out to get it renovated and have our downtown revitalized. I'm also very interested in what the Marin Economic Forum is doing. I helped found that. We now do studies for projects that come into Marin and to see what are the economic benefits as well as the environmental benefits. So those are 3 big things.
I heard that the governor said that California has balanced its books with the voter approval of Proposition 30. How's Marin doing, and how does it look for the second half of our fiscal year?
Actually, you should be very proud of what Marin's doing. We 5 years ago saw this coming, and our county administrator and the finance department really worked. We had numerous brown bag lunches with employees. Our department heads have not had a raise in 4 years. Public safety has renegotiated their benefits. We only have this year a $1.5 million deficit, and that's great for a county with a $478 million budget.
It's remarkable.
It is
actually.
remarkable.
And what about the current status of public employee pensions? The stock market is recovering, and some of the really stark numbers that we saw don't appear to be taking shape. But there still is a significant long-term unfunded liability.
Which we are trying to deal with, and which we started several years ago. We have embraced Governor Brown's pension reform. The one thing that he didn't include that our board wanted was a hybrid option. We are now working on creating a hybrid option and getting permission from Sacramento to do that.
What is that? Define that for
A
us.
hybrid option means that a new employee coming in has the option of either going for a defined contribution from the county or a defined benefit or a defined contribution where they can invest themselves. So that's what that is. We have allocated $48 million that we had in savings to pay down pension reform. And we've directed county staff, as I said, to begin presenting us with a hybrid option. We are negotiating all the time with our employee unions. Their contracts aren't up until 2018, so we were looking and being, but they've been great so far.
Well, I appreciate the balancing act there, and
It
I
is
know
a
a lot of
balancing
people tug on you about the cost and argue that current benefits or promised benefits should be cut. But I would just like to articulate that people who've worked for the county had a contract, and they took a pay package that included the pension benefits. So I think we do need to balance, but we need to honor the commitments that we've made to
I totally agree with that. We're not going to break our promises as far as I'm concerned to our employees. And the average salary, the average retirement for a county employee is $30,000 a year. They really work hard for the community, and they see themselves as serving the public, and they deserve to be recognized.
Judy Arnold, President of the Board of Supervisors. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank
you.
you.
Nice to be here.
Robert Sterling is now the Community Engagement Editor at the Marin Independent Journal. And prior to this new post, he spent 13 years as City Editor of the IJ. He's been a reporter and editor for over 30 years. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you.
Can you give us a quick snapshot of the IJ today? How many people read it every day? How many people use your website? And also, how many reporters do you currently have on staff?
Okay. Well, the main thing is there are more people reading the IJ today than ever before in our history. Our reach is with the help of the internet, so extensive that we've never had more people reading stories. So the print edition has maybe under 30,000 circulation, and that's still a vital product. It's still an engine that drives the Marin Independent Journal. But we have, let's say, I brought a few notes with me. In December, we had 3.6 million page views on our website, which is up from 2 million a year before that, so in December of 2011. So it's up by, about 80%.
And do you have a unique visitor number? That's kind of the standard measurement tool?
I don't have that exact figure, but that's the total number of people who, I can get that for you. But of those page views, kind of interestingly, I think, 25% are from our mobile apps. So these are people who are reading the IJ with iPhone or iPad or Android device. Twitter followers, we have about 8,600, all told, from news, sports, opinion. We've got 3,600 Facebook fans, people who have liked the IJ.
And does the circulation go up on Sunday?
The circulation's pretty stable throughout the week. So, there are variations day to day. So there are lots of people reading the IJ. If you compare these numbers, these eyeballs, so to speak, with 10 years ago, our reach is vast in comparison.
And what's the staffing
in
like?
terms of
how
staffing,
many reporters currently?
We've got, in terms of local news reporters, we have 8 reporters covering a variety of beats. We've got, let's see, a total of 4 or 5 in sports. We've got a couple in lifestyles, and of course some of the news reporters are writing features and lifestyles stories as well. A total newsroom staff of about 27 people.
So now the paper is actually printed over in Contra Costa, in Concord, brought over. I'm curious to know if there's any problems with that meeting your deadlines. But given what you've just said, it sounds to me like the focus of the IJ is paper is not quite as important as the rest of the content these days.
Paper is very important, and it's, like I say, it's our bread and butter. So, I mean, without the paper, we would be nowhere. However, we recognize that a lot of people, a growing number of people, are getting their news in different ways. Some are getting it via Facebook, some via Twitter, some, what have you, Tumblr or Pinterest. And so we're doing the best job we can to reach those people, to also provide the news in formats that we're trying to follow our readers, basically.
Have you all noticed that that's the trend for a suburban paper that's somehow in the shadow of a large metropolitan paper like the Chronicle in most cities around the country?
I think it's the trend in general. And I don't know if you could say it's particular to a suburban newspaper or a smaller community daily that might be in the shadow of a larger metro. But these are the kinds of things that are being seen industry-wide, newspapers large and small.
Robert, there have been a lot of changes in your industry and consolidation, and your parent company, the Media News Group, owns virtually all of the daily papers with the exception of the San Francisco Chronicle and Examiner in this whole region. We can imagine what the benefits are to the company, and for example, you're now printing the IJ in Concord at the Contra Costa Times. We've also noticed that on the front page of the IJ, there's a little notice that says that it's an edition of the San Jose Mercury News. And maybe you could explain what that means. But I'm curious about what the benefits are. And one of the things I'd love to see, for example, is stories published in the IJ that originated at the Mercury News, which is a great paper and does a lot of good original coverage.
Right. Well, that Mercury News link is an acknowledgement that we are all part of a bigger family of newspapers, and we do share stories a lot. A lot of our, particularly they've got a very strong, and there's been a lot of sports news lately, and the Mercury News has a very strong sports staff, so we've been able to piggyback on that, share, use their stories, and use a lot of their stories, state politics, regional issues, and the same with the Contra Costa Times, which is also quite significant news outlet in the East Bay. So from a news standpoint, and that's what I'm immersed in, rather than a business standpoint, it's been wonderful to be able to have access to that universe of stories, and then vice versa. When big stories happen in Marin County, we're able to reciprocate and share stories. So it's and we're getting better at sharing those stories and communicating about what's going on, so that we're all part of a network. So
The local coverage in the IJ seems to be rather complete. You mentioned 26 folks in your newsroom.
about 27.
27,
Yeah.
sorry. Do the reporters have specific beats, and how is that allocated?
They do. Well, speaking just for news, let's take the reporters who report to the city desk, the desk that I had been in charge of for the last dozen years or so. We've got a reporter assigned to the Civic Center, reporting on county government regularly, day in, day out. We've got a reporter covering San Rafael and Corte Madera and Larkspur all as one chunk. We've got reporters covering, assigned to Mill Valley specifically, a reporter assigned to Sausalito. So all these reporters, Novato, et cetera, they all have a geographic beat and that they're responsible for. But in addition to that, some of them cover other types of things. So we have thematic beats, the environment, transportation, healthcare, for example, social services, real estate, those kinds of things that are big topic areas, and where they're in Marin County, there's a lot of interest in
Traffic schools and real estate? Is that three full-time reporters?
Robert, you recently switched jobs with Brad Breithaupt, who had been called the opinion page editor.
Right.
He took your job as city editor, and your position is now called community engagement editor.
And social media as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's too long.
It's a mouthful.
So what does your job entail, and how is it different from what Brad was doing?
Okay, so Brad was the opinion page editor and took care of all that, and is now an assignment editor. Both of us are experienced editors, and we've been in community news for quite a long time. So in a lot of ways, some of these jobs are a bit interchangeable, but the community engagement editor and social media position is brand new. And you see this kind of job title popping up all around the country at newspapers, large and small. And it comes along with that recognition that we talked about earlier, that people are getting their news in a lot of new and different ways, and we need to be responsive. We need to be able to, go where our readers are going. And that's not always easy for an editor to do who may just be focused on, getting the paper out each day, and that in itself is a full-time job. So increasingly, newspapers are assigning more responsibility to different editors. So we have a digital editor, someone who's in charge of the website and trying to keep that fresh and alive and up to date. And then my position is kind of an amalgam of things. I'm I'm working more with social media, so trying to breathe life into Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing. At the same time, there's a recognition that we have a whole universe of bloggers out there who are often writing about really relevant things, things that people could care about in Marin County, but we're not doing a very good job of bringing their voices out. And so...
And do you write the editorials?
No, I'll get to that. Okay. So one thing I'm doing is organizing community bloggers, and if you go to, blogs.marinij.com, you'll see a listing we call the IJ Blog Center. It just started up in the past week, where we've got 40 or 50 community bloggers.
Great.
It's the first listing that I know of in Marin County, first comprehensive listing of bloggers, everything from food to art to transportation issues to just relationships, etc. And we're trying to, our staff writers are starting to do more blogging, because there's often information that doesn't make it into the paper for whatever reason, either because it's so much detail that we don't have space for, or that it may not really be right on point. So this gives our bloggers an outlet, our staff writers an outlet to.
And I'm sorry, we're almost out of time.
Oh, okay.
Do you write the editorials now?
I do not, no. Doug Bunnell, who's the executive editor, has taken on that role, so he's been writing editorials.
Great. Well, I wish we had more time, but I want to thank you for joining us today. A pleasure to meet you. Robert Sterling, and he is the Community Engagement and
Social Media
Editor at the Marin IJ.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for coming by.